one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream. My 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. One day every valley shall be exalted. Every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together.
Welcome to the Gilchrist Experience. You've just witnessed the birthday of to me, the most marvelous human that walked the planet of the 20th century, our peacemaker, our Christian minister who preached love energy, really lived the life of a real Christian, spread love, and he was often called a punk, and it's the way we treat our leaders. Those of us that are more militant, Martin, we went over this once before. I have that piece in there with Martin and Malcolm. These were our heroes coming up. These were the people who did things that wasn't possible for us to do. Right. There's no way in the world I could fight racism by sitting at a lunch counter and getting smacked upside the head. You know, I fought it differently. We all fight being black a different way. We all have different takes on how to fight hate. But Martin stuck with it all the way through it, with all the criticisms, and we celebrate him today. Here's somebody that could take all the riffing, and I think Obama will be Martin Luther King II, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, smiles, criticism, but just the same way we treated Martin. We didn't learn to appreciate any of our leaders till they were dead and gone. Jesus, nobody appreciated Jesus till he was dead and gone. This is when we rave about our people when they're gone. Same thing happened with Martin, Malcolm. Who else can we think of?
Marcus Garvey.
Marcus Garvey.
Medgar Evers.
Medgar Evers.
Go down the list.
We have a storehouse.
Even Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Boulevard. Even Adam Clayton Powell Jr.
But we saw all his flaws when he was alive, didn't we?
Well, everybody has flaws. Martin had flaws, Malcolm had flaws.
Right.
It doesn't make any difference who the leader is. Every leader has flaws. So that's a given because we're all human. There is no, there's nobody out here walking around that's perfect. The job is to set an example.
Why does Martin shine the way he does today?
I think Martin breached, he expanded the gap. We all know he started as a preacher, but he understood that his faith was more than the pulpit. In order to be effective, you have to be in the streets. And when you look at the life of Christ, I always tell people there are only 2 accounts of Jesus Christ in the temple. Only 2. When he was a young boy teaching in the synagogue at age 12, and then again at age 30 when he went back to kick some tail and run the money changers out of the temple. His ministry was in the street. because that's where the people needed the help. It's not the people coming into the temple. The people coming into the temple need help too, but the ministry was to the street. And Martin saw that. He understood that. And he took his ministry to the streets. And then it went political. When he did that speech on why he was opposed to the war in Vietnam, that was a paradigm shift, not just for him, but for political leaders. He was told, stick to your civil rights and stay out of this because these people were making big money. Dow Chemical and all the other companies. So that was a major shift for them. They failed to understand that the man of God is to check us when we're wrong.
And everybody turned on Martin because of that.
Yeah, because they put politics and patriotism ahead of God.
Now, this was April 4th, 1967, that he made that speech in Riverside Church against Vietnam. And he died exactly a year later, April 4th, 1968. Now, that's kind of different in the cards. God planned it that way? I don't know.
Well, he was being threatened by J. Edgar Hoover,
everybody.
You know, the Klan. There's a wonderful piece that he did, a sermon, Why Jesus Called a Man a Fool, or a Knock at Midnight. And during the bus boycott, he got a phone call one night. And they said, nigga, we're going to kill you. We're going to blow your brains out. We're going to kill your wife. We're going to kill your little girl if you don't get out of town. And he said, when you listen to that speech, he said, I had to dig deep in my soul. I couldn't go to mommy and daddy. They were 90 miles away in Atlanta. I had to dig deep in myself to determine who I was. So
I had to find God for myself.
For myself.
And that was really what all Christians have to understand and have to manifest within themselves. You know, I mean, without changing the subject, because I think Martin was, you could take him all the way back to ancient Egypt and apply his life to Huru in that, and we were talking about this early when we talked about Ma'at. Peace, well, truth, justice, harmony, balance, and peace. And when you live that, because that's really what Dr. King was trying to manifest in his consciousness and get us to see that and manifest it as well with him, because when you live truth, justice, peace, balance, it's not you who speak. It's the Creator that speaks through you. And that, well, I won't go into that right now, but that is where our ability to build pyramids, to understand the principles and the laws of the universe, was living that truth, that justice, that harmony, that balance that makes you a new people. Martin tried to bring that to humanity today so that humanity could evolve into a higher being. So he had a path to raise us, to raise humanity to a higher consciousness, which would have brought us into a whole new divinity and understanding of the universe that we could produce or we could bring forward. That space where the fruit of love could be manifested, where the fruit of peace could be manifested, where we could live together as human beings in a civilized fashion. This is not a civilization that we live in. To live in a civilization means that you get along, you're civilized, you're civil, so that you can live with your brother and sisters together. And the Africans understood that, and they built their societies around that. So you didn't have, as Dr. Clark said, you didn't have jails.
Right.
You didn't have old folks' home. You didn't have the light. You didn't have the kind of need and want that we have in these societies. This society that we live in today is a corruption of humanity. And right now it is over the cliff. It is in free fall.
Right.
And I'm not so sure that it can be saved.
Oh, it's got to be said.
Well,
You're saying that Trump is the Antichrist?
well, it certainly manifests all of the character of the Antichrist. I mean, you know.
His demeanor is Antichrist. Whether he's the Antichrist is something else, but
Absolutely.
his
Or is he just
lifestyle.
pro-Trump? Trump is about himself.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, and just adding to what Brother Graham and what Brother Clemson have started off with, the Christianity piece. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad breaks on us that Christ means crusher, crusher of wickedness, crusher of evil. So when you take on the title of Christian, you are committed actually to that, to dispensing with wrong, whether it's in your family, neighborhood, or in the broad community. That's one thing. Number two, his quest, quoting Brother Clemson, to raise the consciousness of humanity to a point where, quote, we can all get along together. I would transfer that to black people. Raising the consciousness of black people to the power that we have given to others, that we have abdicated to others, and look to others to validate us in our quest for freedom, justice, and equality. When we do that, we lose energy, we lose thrust, and we leave ourselves open to what happens to us when we go into what Brother Martin Luther King said to Harry Belafonte, that I believe, quoting Harry Belafonte saying this, I believe that I've invited my people into a burning house. My people. Right. And when you look at I Have a Dream and the evolution from that speech to what he said to Harry Belafonte, you're dealing with an evolved leadership. Right. You're dealing with an evolved leadership where he was drafted to take the thing to the street by the women who were leading the Montgomery boycott, and it's a divine occurrence, in my opinion. Here you have this scholar. The man is a scholar. The man is brilliant when you get into his credentials. But beyond his credentials, when you look at his writings, when you look at his speeches, you're dealing with a brilliant black man. That's right. All right? So here he is. He comes from his brilliance to the street, where we're looking today for our scholars who are in academia and wherever they at, where they're hidden away. We're looking for them to bring information to us. But that's another story. But the point is, he comes in and among his people, and they become energized by his presence and by his words. There's so many leaders who have come out of that movement that we don't know about, but they know about. They know that they were energized by his speeches. And then with the Vietnam peace, that was a universal message. And that's where he wasn't supposed to go. Negroes stay out of that. That's right. As they say, nigga, that ain't your business. That's right. But he made it the business. And then, God bless him, Brother Dick Gregory gives light on the assassination of Dr. King. He takes it away from the realm of some crazy guy doing it to a government plot. Of course. Which was exposed in a trial that the King family had in, I believe, in Atlanta. But the news of it is not out. So, summing up, Martin Luther King in the subject is very, very critical for us. For us like Brother Leroy, who was a nationalist back in those days, who
Right.
said, you know, he was the Uncle Tom, and you know,
Right.
he's playing along with these people. He's getting our people beat.
Right.
All right. And then today, to look at him as the dynamic epitome of leadership and a style that we should emulate from the standpoint of study and the
Amen.
standpoint of giving to our
Amen.
people. So it's a very important study. Beyond this program, the viewership has to get into his speeches. Beyond a dream.
Right.
They can't
That's
leave,
not it.
They can't leave this program and not go to Google and say, what books can I get on him?
All right, you know what we're going to do? We're going to give you a historical background of Martin Luther King. We have run that second piece on Martin and give you, the youth, of course, that needs to see all this. You know, you have no idea what life was like back then in '63. I was 22 years old in the Marine Corps, and I barely knew. I was dealing with crackers all over the place, and I was one of few blacks in the Marine Corps. Nobody else black was crazy enough to join a Southern organization, as a Marine Corps is.
Somebody's
still,
calling
you know?
your name.
I was considered a nut because I joined the Marine Corps. Everybody else black joined the Air Force.
That's
You
right.
don't
They weren't
join
trying
the
to get
Marine
killed.
And I went to Paris Island and I got the shock of my life, man. But let's play this piece and we'll give you a little history of 1963.
On a hot day in August 1963, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered a speech that would define the civil rights movement and his legacy. This, of course, was his I Have a Dream speech, delivered on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial during the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom.
I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
The March on Washington served as a massive push for economic and political justice for African Americans. Held during the year celebrating the 100th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation, crowds marched on the National Mall to watch a variety of musical performances and speeches. Dr. King, a Baptist preacher and prominent civil rights leader, was scheduled to speak towards the end of the day, his debut on the national stage. Up until that point, King mostly addressed small crowds at black churches, rallies, or fundraisers. This time, he would be seen by nearly 250,000 people on the ground, as well as millions at home watching on television. This was an opportunity to reach a wide audience and persuade the public and the government to take action against racial injustice. The night before, King worked with a close group of advisors to get the speech just right. They worked through the night, settling on a final draft in the pre-dawn hours of August 28. Interestingly, the phrase, "I have a dream," a phrase he used in earlier speeches, was nowhere to be found in this copy. The words wouldn't manifest until almost halfway into Dr. King's speech, when gospel singer Mahalia Jackson, who had performed earlier in the day, called out to him from the sidelines to tell them about the dream. King set his prepared remarks aside and improvised the rest, crafting a soaring speech that would sear into the minds of millions of Americans.
No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream.
The speech was divided into two parts. The first listed the injustices that African Americans faced: segregation, police brutality, disenfranchisement, and discrimination, and urged a call to nonviolent action. The second launched into King's dream of peace and racial harmony, a vision of a future in which people will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
I have a dream.
Highlighting King's skills as a preacher, I Have a Dream was part sermon and part poetry, using rhetorical devices like repetition, rhyme, and vivid metaphor to drive his points home. It was peppered with historic, biblical, and literary references that moved the crowd. Of struggle and hope became the defining moment not only of King's career, but also the civil rights movement. Both the speech and the March on Washington were credited with helping secure the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, a landmark piece of legislation that ended segregation and banned discrimination on the basis of race or sex in the workplace.
Free at last! Free at last! Thank God Almighty, we are free at last!
The speech also resonated with activists around the globe. I have a dream. The phrase that wasn't even meant to be in his final draft appeared in political actions all around the world. It's considered one of the world's most transformative and influential speeches, alongside others like Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address and Winston Churchill's Blood, Toil, Tears, and Sweat. I Have a Dream is only one of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s many achievements, but it's nonetheless one of the most pivotal.
I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation.
I'm
No.
back to get more. You know?
I found that very interesting because this was just newly made up. Matter of fact, it was in HD. And like I was saying, of the 20th century, for me, I resonate. I play his last speech quite often just to get the emotional rile of him seeing his death coming and how attached to God he was. I feel I'm a God-fearing man, but this is the principle that I follow. I mean, that love energy that he always tried to do. And like I say, I couldn't sit nowhere and take any kind of crap back in those days. But today, I find myself even trying to understand Donald Trump, giving him some, so God will take care of him. I mean, this is a message from God again, showing us where the devil lies. If he is an antichrist, why are people performing and lying, playing this? I mean, the lies that are coming. The revolution is being televised. It's definitely here. And to see Trump and his cahoots, this gangster, low life. This man is not fit to be where he is, and how he got there, and the people that put him in there, and us lacking and fighting amongst each other is how he got in there.
Well, it's evident.
Hating on what's her name?
You can't even remember the name.
Hillary Clinton. Remember that?
It reflects where this country is morally, ethically, spiritually. The United States boasts of greatness, but there's been a major paradigm shift over the years. We were just talking about the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which the Voting Rights Act of 65 was started, the work was started in the 1880s, 1890s. It didn't come about until 75 years later. But the thing is this, that we are not where we were 50 years ago. Black people have had some strides and advances, but we're nowhere near where we were 50 years ago, in my opinion, because we're not thinking right. Back then,
Have we gone backwards?
I think we've gone backwards,
Okay.
because we knew who we were and we knew what we were up against.
Right, in 63.
63.
Okay.
Even before.
All right.
We understood brotherhood.
Yeah.
Let me say something. When you say we understood brotherhood, because when I was looking at that piece with Dr. King, and I remember I was there at the speech in Washington.
You were there?
I was there.
Okay.
And I've had the blessing and the opportunity to know so many of our great leaders and brothers and sisters, and because I was the official documentarian for the National Black United Front and pretty much the movement. You know, I came up, I was ordained in the House of the Lord Church, but I traveled with Shopton, I traveled with everybody, Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, Dr. Jeffries,
yes,
you name
yes.
it. And what I want to say is that I just, you know, of course, when you start getting 80s and in your 80 and you realize that your days ahead of you are not as many as the days behind you. And I have seen some of the most beautiful brothers and sisters on the planet.
Yeah, amen.
I walked with them.
Amen.
When if the word had been given to us, because in all of these demonstrations, most of the time I was in the front line with my camera. And I'm talking about now from the 70s all the way up to 2000. If the word had been given that we go into the police line or whatever, I had no doubt about it because I was going, and I knew every brother beside me.
Right.
And every brother in that line was going. And there was nothing that would hold us back. We would have given our lives. And Graham, even with you, with Tawana Brawley, up in Poughkeepsie, and you know, your dedication. I saw you personally take down a white racist who was trying to slip up on Shopton. I think he had a gun.
He was disturbing a press conference, and one of the sisters who was a reporter said to him, "Shut up, we're trying to work here." And that set him off. But I was standing next to him. I can't remember the other brother that really wanted to move. I said, no, just. But the guy had cargo pockets on his pants. And I'm standing next to him, and he had shotgun shells in his pants. And he looked at her, and he mumbled something. He turned, and he started walking. So I figured he's going somewhere to get his shotgun.
Yeah.
So I pulled my gun and took him down at gunpoint in the middle of the street while the press conference was going on, you know.
So there have been so many.
But he had threatened the life of Bill Clinton that same morning, and the Secret Service was in Poughkeepsie looking for him. So they picked him up at the courthouse, and we took him in the courthouse.
But I just wanted to thank, I mean, I look at Reverend C. Herbert Oliver and
Yes.
the brothers who was with Dr. King.
I was thinking about him today.
Reverend Shuttlesworth and all of them
Shuttlesworth,
that I had a chance to meet. And so when I'm talking about some of the most dedicated, brave, would give your life, would give their life for us, for their people who had this kind of love. I just want to reach out. I could reach out and hug that whole movement, because that movement was so powerful, and it really said to the world who we are. And when you talked about Dr. King and that call that he got that said, I'm going to kill your children. So, well, I was listening at a record that Dr. King talked about that. And when he said that he thought that he may not see his children again and so forth. And he said he had to find God for himself. And how he prayed.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that is where you leave the church and you have to go into yourself, because see, we can't allow Christianity to be the crutch that does not allow us to evolve. You can't say,
what? Meaning what?
Meaning that Jesus died for himself. You got to die for yourself. You got to do for yourself what is right. You can't say, Jesus died for me, and therefore I'm saved and all of this. Dr. King said at that time he had to find Jesus. He had to find God for himself. You can't rely on Jesus. When Jesus was put on the cross, Gee, and that Roman stuck that spear in his side. He said, "Oh God, why have thou forsaken me?" The peace and harmony and godliness that is in us all, we have to go in and manifest that for ourselves. You got to find your oneness with the universe and with God for yourself. You cannot, and this is what over the years, you know, because I'm a preacher. I've been in the pulpit for years and years and years, but you can't you can't use that as a crutch. Our people have to evolve and understand, going all the way back to our ancient ancestors, that when we talked about ma'at, you can't get any deeper in oneness with the universe, because that's the only way you're going to be one with the universe. And our people laid out truth, justice, harmony, peace, balance. That's what we have to look at each other and bring back into being, because that's where our power is manifested. And that's where Dr. King became Haru. That's where Dr. King became Jesus. That's where Dr. King understood his oneness with the universe.
Amen.
Right.
And because once you get yourself, once you get that ego out of the way, then you can allow the universe to speak through you. And that's where you lose your fear. He went on knowing that any minute they were going to take him out.
Right.
Yeah.
But he had the strength and the courage to go forward and face death.
I want to give a
That's-
quote
Yeah, please.
correlating to what you said. Martin said this: "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy."
Amen.
That's what he had to deal with. Yeah, a lot of times, a brother stopped me in front of the Time Warner building on the way over here. People stop me in the street from time to time, and you know, they're thanking me and commenting. You know, a lot of times I tell them, "Well, thank
But
you." I
seeing
said,
you on the Gilchrist experience, right?
that too. That too. You know, I've had people on this. I see on the show, the Gilchrist. Yep. But you know, I ask people, "What are you doing?
Amen.
What are you
There
doing?"
you go.
I'm not going to carry the burden of the entire world, the
Amen.
black race. What are we as individuals doing other than
Correct.
watching? It's
right.
become a
complaining.
spectator
Right.
sport,
Or
or complaining.
Right.
You know, "Oh, I'm a victim."
Yeah.
We got to get out of that.
That's right.
We ain't never
This
been like
this
that.
is an ongoing
Never been
war
like that.
that we have to be engaged in. And yes,
Yeah.
in war there are casualties, there are injuries, and there are many that survive the war and go on to tell the stories. The men that you see in the video there standing next to Martin with the white kufis on, those were black police officers from the National Black Police Organization. They were bodyguarding him because they knew of the threats that were up against not only him, but A. Philip Randolph and all the organizers. So the guy to the right with the thick mustache, a good friend of mine, God bless his soul, Jesse Dukes. He was a transit police detective. He helped train me. You see, I was honored to be standing in his presence as a police officer, knowing where he was in 1963. So it's not about me,
It's about
because
us.
I got it from other people. I got this thing from my parents, from the stuff my father did in Georgia,
Amen.
shooting it out with the Ku Klux Klan with my grandfather and my uncles.
Right.
You know, running them out of a town in Georgia. My mother organizing demonstrations in Washington during the Second World War because the buses didn't want to stop in front of black people.
But you
You know.
see, back then, we always tried to do things the right way. There was no rebelling against the system. You took them to task of what they wrote down in the Constitution.
No.
All men are created.
There was rebellion.
Look,
Whether you call it
what
civil
I'm saying,
disobedience.
I'm saying we as a people, we abided by the rules. That was our way, normally. Normally, we tried to do the right thing. We tried to
Well,
make
that
our
is true.
parents proud of us.
That's true.
But when
We
it
had
fails-
and we tried to make everybody proud. You had people watching you walk down the street. We looked out for each other.
Oh, yes, in that
You know,
context,
everybody,
yes.
if you
Yeah.
did something wrong, your parents, neighbor were getting on your case.
That's
right.
Today,
We were brothers.
anybody does something wrong, oh, I ain't snitching on him. You know, this is what I'm talking about.
Okay, you're right.
Our,
you're
our
right.
sense of morality and our do the right thing was all, it was, we were, I mean, that's all we knew how to do. And we were rebellion, but the 60s brought out a new thing. We saw Martin try to do it the right way, and he got beat down, and he got the civil rights in 64. Then in 67, he goes and goes against something else was wrong. He spoke against Johnson, who I think assassinated Kennedy to get in the office. That's another story. But then 68 came, and that was the worst
Yeah, but
year on the
Johnson
planet.
didn't even run. The war was
That's
such
right.
a hot item.
That's
Johnson
right.
said, "I'm not running." He backed out.
And-
But he convinced the nation. Martin convinced the nation that where our government was going was wrong.
Right.
There were many people that were saying it, but when Martin stepped to the pulpit, when he stepped to that at Riverside Church and made that declaration, he called the U.S. out on the carpet.
That's right.
And that changed the history of the country.
That's right. And you had take 67, and that's the start of the Black Panthers. That's when we start rebellious upheaval, because they saw us, we dying in Vietnam, and the real battle was here.
H. Rap Brown, Stokely
Right? And then the
Carmichael.
Panthers came out. We got rebellious. Then 68 came, and I think everybody went haywire after Martin, and then Kennedy was killed
Okay.
that year. And then we got the Antichrist Nixon.
But the impact that African people made was felt around the world.
Right?
I remember I went to Mexico. I was a port, I was in City College. And my money wasn't no good. I couldn't spend a dime. Everywhere I went,
What year we're talking?
we're talking about maybe 1971, 72, around that time. The respect that people gave me wherever I went because I was African American was just made you just so proud to be an African American. It ain't happening now, We've lost a lot
Was
of
that from guilt?
respect.
You think that was from guilt from 68? The 70s? I thought it was.
From guilt.
Guilt.
Affirmative action, the guilt of what happened to King and
No.
Kennedy.
Oh, you mean the
I'm
way
saying-
people treated us?
Yeah.
No, they respected us. They respected us because we stood up, we fought, we
See, our
burnt
hero
cities down.
died trying to do it the right way.
And look, I went to Kwame Touré's funeral in Guinea. And from the place they had the funeral to where they buried him was about, I said 2 to 3 miles. But we walked down the street, and the streets were packed for that whole 3 miles. Kwame Touré was here, but he went to Guinea, and that's where he died, in Guinea. But the respect that they showed him, I'm just talking about the kind of respect that we had at one time. I don't know if we still have that level of respect around the world. I've spent a little time in Nigeria lately, but that's it. So I don't know if the rest of you have been traveling.
The image of black people has been projected as from the hip hop.
Oh, well, that's,
you're right.
that's
You
a
have the
different
gangster
world.
thing.
That's a
Yeah,
different
that's a
world.
different world.
And
That's a different world.
the movies, oh man, Minister Society, those things, those films that some of us have glorified in project a negative image.
Yeah.
And
So we've
the
gone
impact
backwards.
of those.
We've gone backwards, like Graham said.
We have to look at, in my opinion, we have to look at the areas. We have to look at the areas of education, and then when you look at the area of education, you have to look at the higher education versus, not versus, you have to look at the components of education. At the highest realm, you got a lot of scholars coming out.
Okay.
At the lower realm, you have the dumbing down of America,
Yeah.
the intentional
Right.
dumbing down of a people,
Right.
which goes to a point that was made earlier. I can't remember which of you three made it, but talking about the society, when you keep a people down, when you make a people illiterate, that leads into criminal activity
Absolutely.
in their area, and it
course.
spreads out.
Of course.
It's a festering situation. So many of us are familiar with the term social engineering. And our people, the condition of our people has been socially engineered.
Yes, absolutely.
From the very top in the game that's being played today is affordable housing. They talk about more units of affordable housing has been built. This is a report yesterday than ever before, while you have 60,000 people who are homeless in New York City.
Right.
Right.
And I think the total of affordable housing unit was 27,000. While you have 60,000 people who are homeless, is that the kind of society, I'm talking about us, that we would have? We won't have that type of society. And Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, hurry up and get qualified. Their society,
right.
at the
That's
time that
right.
he said
That's
that,
right.
that's in the 60s.
Yeah.
So you say, hurry up and get qualified. Today, what that means to get qualified to run the sewage system, to run transportation, to run education, we have to become qualified to run our own nation.
That is correct.
Even if it's a nation within a nation, we cannot spend time. And this is a wicked trick that's played on our people every year. You see our people going out and buying dresses and suits for their children to graduate from the 3rd grade to the 4th grade, from the 6th grade to the 7th grade, and then at the end of the pipeline,
High school.
12.3% of the graduates out of
High
New York
school.
City high schools, 12.3% were college ready.
12%.
12.
That's right.
This is their statistics.
12%?
Yeah.
12.3. That means out of 100
What?
people, only 12.
Is it that bad?
It's
It
that
is.
bad. And
It
they
is.
cannot
Oh my-
write their own
Cannot.
names.
Oh,
This is why this program,
Oh, wow.
for the people who watch it and become energized for the moment, have to take that energy and begin to
Start
educate
learning.
their grandchildren, their nieces and nephews, begin something in the church. Martin Luther King's birthday was yesterday. How many black people who
Monday.
celebrated the day off
Yeah.
in terms of black history would now begin to get the Amsterdam News in their home, which has a full page by Herb Boyd on black history?
Hey.
And he does a fantastic job. Or getting other black newspapers or magazines in their home. Bottom line, what I'm saying, Martin Luther King is, this book here is Martin Luther King Jr. on Leadership. It's written by Donald Phillips, the guy who writes on leadership. And it's a very good book. It's a very good book for people to take just a piece of and work with their youngsters, our younger people, even within their own family. The value of this book, to me, is that other people are studying us. They
Amen.
study it. We're the lifeblood of America.
We're the spiritual people of the planet.
We are the spiritual people of the planet, and the
That's
civil
it.
rights movement demonstrated that.
That's why that's why I follow Martin Luther King and his disciple Reverend Sharpton. I mean, y'all can badmouth Reverend Sharpton all you want, but he's a disciple of Martin Luther King. He's the one out there carrying out that image. And here's another unrecognized hero. My hero. I've been there 20 years. I've watched him grow and change and flow with the times. If you want a political critic, one that's sharp and on, I mean, he has his flaws, as all humans do, but Martin's history and his principle right there with Reverend Sharpton. You saw it Monday at the Martin Luther King Day. Everybody was there. Everybody was there. But he has a system that works. And it's a descendant, he's a disciple of Martin Luther King. So I call for all of us to be disciples of Martin. I mean, Martin, every time I play a piece of his death, I mean, that was Black Jesus for me. I mean,
Jesus was black.
Of course he was. But I'm saying modern time. In modern time, our
We
Jesus.
should all be
Christ-like.
a representation of, you talk about the Godhead,
Spiritual
the
energy.
godliness. We should all represent that. It's not enough to sit and read a book. It's got to be taken into the very essence of life, where it's poured out of you upon somebody else. And you're pouring out. That's why I asked her, well, what are you doing? One person can only be in one place at one time. But if 10,000 people are about the same thing, that's 10,000 more units. And when you connect with somebody, that sympathetic resonance, ding, they got it, and they're going. You know, and we need to go back to where we were, because years ago we knew who our adversary was, and it's such a tricky day today for young people. And I don't blame young people, because they don't understand the system as it's working. Social media, television, all of this stuff. We didn't have to deal with that. So they're being bombarded, but it is still incumbent upon us. The boys we work with out at Eagle Academy in Queens, we talk to them about addictions. I say, you guys have an addiction? No, I don't do drugs. That's your addiction. These kids, they got them stuck on this stuff. That, a spinner, any kind of thing to take their mind away from getting wisdom and knowledge and understanding. And that's why the kids come out of high school, only 12% are ready for college, because of the distractions.
Let me just throw this in here, because I don't know why the church keeps popping up as needing to make some corrections.
It's a foundation.
When we talk about, the church, I was looking at the guy talking about it. But he said, up at Shopton's, the brothers was talking about, go down, tell old Moses, let my people go.
Pharaoh.
Oh, Pharaoh, let my people go. You cannot denigrate our history. That is us. When you talk, the church is always go down Pharaoh, go down to Pharaoh, let my people go. That is destroying the very foundation of our history and separating us from ourselves and from the greatest civilization ever created on planet Earth, out of which all the knowledge of Western civilization, all the knowledge of churches and everything come from our ancient Egyptian ancestors. So these kind of small radical changes have to be made by the church, and that's why so many young people are leaving the church. The church is still a vibrant institution, and we need it. And it has done so much for our people because it was what we had, and we used what we had. But we got to make the corrections, and we got to change these churches into spiritual centers and teach truth so that we will evolve and shed those components that hold us down. And I'm saying this to every minister that somehow may hear what I'm saying. If we are serious about the liberation of our people, and you're a minister, you got to begin to learn. You got to begin to study the history of your own people, our people, and what we have given to the world, and see how we have been chosen from the beginning. We are the first. Talk about the chosen. We are the chosen.
Right.
Amen.
Africans are the chosen. They're the ones that the Creator brought forth first and put every element that's in the universe went into the making of man. That's why, you look at the Sphinx. you see this huge carved out of solid rock lion with the head of a man. But it is our thinking, the ability of speech, that separates us from the animal kingdom. The Creator gave us speech. All languages on the planet Earth are derivative from the mother tongue of Africa. And it is through speech that we're able to objectify ourselves. It is through speech that we are able to bring our will forth. And so when you see this black man, the head on the body of a lion, which is the king of the animal dominion, and I, you know, I mean that. If you put your head to the ground and a lion roar, he can be 5 miles away, but the vibrations go through the earth. That lion is a powerful, masterful creature, but we are sitting on him, separating, and what separates us is our ability to speak. Now, we have to go back to our intellect, because that's what separates us from that kingdom. And it is the universe, when we begin to do truth and justice and my art, it is the universe that we balance with, and that flows through us. We can't die. The Africans didn't know death until the European, because there's no concept in ancient Africa. They believed that the living, the dead, and the yet unborn all share the same space. So you might transition from one form to another, but they didn't know death. And that is a critical concept of consciousness. It gives you a whole different, you know, ability. And we were talking about the pyramids, how they were built. When you are living my art, you can do anything, because it's not you who's doing it. It's the Creator doing it through you. So this white man cannot destroy us. And we must know that and understand that and put ourselves in the place that if we have to, we'll destroy.
Well, you have to realize that
because it is not us that he is fighting. He's fighting the Creator himself.
Well, you know what he's creating. You can see what this man is doing in the White House. He's creating hate and on big time, on all sides. And we still are killing each other too much. Yes. We have to learn to use that king system to love the spiritual nature, and like I say every week in this program, the God in me loves the God in you. And that's just transferring to you the spiritual energy. And you go into church and you can feel, I went to 1 Corinthians, and man, that place is so charged with love energy, man. I mean, you want to feel the Spirit of God. Just walk into that place and just vibrating.
Does that minister understand ancient Egypt?
Well, we're going to get Reverend Warren on here.
He's been here
get
before.
Him on there.
Matter of fact, Dr. Kane Hope Feldman.
Let me finish my point.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The point is that, see, the love energy that we're preaching about Martin Luther King, we have that in us. And what this demon is doing today, that's why I call him the Antichrist, is because he's taking that away from us. I saw myself getting hateful on this program. I was getting all upset with him, and I shouldn't do that. I mean, that's not me. I wasn't like myself. I'm calling them the N-word. I'm getting all upset, and this man was just riding me. I had to look at myself in the mirror. I said, and you're preaching God in me loves a God in you. And I got a little hateful with this man. And I said, look at this fool. I said, this fool is not going to upset me anymore. Because it's all in God's hands.
Yes.
Man,
yes.
This is set up to test us. This is a test.
It is a test.
It's nothing but a test. And so it's saying to every black man walking around, don't you know who you are? The Dogon show us who we are. We are creators. We're the superhuman beings. We're the gods here.
The sneaker program, the sneaker campaign. We're the creators.
Yeah.
You seen that?
No, I haven't seen it.
Yes, we're the creators at whichever company it is. And I said to my nephew, I said, a black guy planted that particular idea in that campaign because it's a major sneaker company, but we are the creators. And what I'm hearing from Brother Clemson is that the church is a center of organization, of spirituality within the black community.
That's right.
Yet they are not up on where they need to be in order to energize our people to the higher level.
We've got to get rid ourselves of these church pimps that we have out there. Now, everybody knows one. Everybody knows some pastor in a church doing nothing but pimping the people because he knows the spirituality in black people. Now, you can sway a whole bunch of black people just by preaching, just giving some love energy. I mean, we're Martin Luther Kings, man. That's who we are. We are this man.
Liberators.
We believe in love energy. We ran the planet this way. That's all we have ever done. In the old days, we were singing tunes, and everybody loved. And Nat King Cole sang a song, and you just melt. Man, you couldn't get mad at anybody. we put everybody to sleep and killed them with love, man. That was our way. This hostility that we show, that's nonsense. That's not us. You out there killing your brother, then you're sick. You really,
that
over
is true.
what? The sneaker size of a sneaker?
That's what I was talking about before. You know, we had a brotherhood.
That's right.
We knew
That's
who
right.
we were. We knew what we were working against. And we've bought into the nonsense in the 60s.
Yeah.
The notion of wanting to be equal. We don't need to sit down at a lunch counter with anybody.
No. Yeah, let me take
the
this.
lunch counter.
You can own the lunch
there's no
counter.
separate. There's
Right.
one race, the human race, and you have to learn and love everybody to teach them how to be human. All right? There's no separation. There's one race, the human race, and the God in me loves the God in you, and
I didn't
take
finish
some
my
Martin
statement.
and just love everybody. Even love Donald Trump. Don't give it a break. No, I
The
don't
God
hear
in me
it.
loves the God in
You
you.
know what I mean? I ain't bringing no hate out here.
Provided God is in you.
Provided God
Some
is in
people
you.
don't
I'm
have
gonna put some God in you. Stay tuned for more of the Gilchrist experience. We come with it.
You got 15 seconds. Keep going. Keep going.
Power to the people. And remember Martin Luther King. He had nothing but love energy in him.
Do a good deed.
Amen.
Do
Love your
at least
neighbor.
one good deed
Every
per
day.
day.
Amen.
Yeah, I second that.
Did I say power to the people? Power to the people.
You're off the air.
God bless.